many people come to our shows and well, the people I'd like to be there, we know our converted group, the pretty sophisticated audience, but
Yeah.
I'm a populist, as you know, and I think what people leave and they're scratching their head and say, "What the hell was that?" and "What is that?" and I feel so stupid, or what have you. So I thought to give those sort of folks a lead, I'd sit down and talk with the artists, humanize them, and no, they're not pompous sons of bitches. They are actually deeply feeling, and they have reasons what they do. So that caveat being said, I'll jump in. Um,
Okay, thank you.
uh, let's see. I'm very good
And
today.
I just, Bilty, I just want to say that I think so much about who my work could speak to outside of our small ecosystems. And that's something that's really, really, really important for me. So
Mhm,
I completely share your questions and
mhm.
desire to have these conversations.
Although I think on behalf of every badass woman or man, male artist that we know who was a complete misanthrope, who nobody understood, they have a right to make the work they want to make, and the world can accept it or not or catch up. But somehow I don't think that's relevant to where you're at. It's not relevant to where I'm at. But
Yeah,
we're not trying to
me
take
too.
away anyone's freedom in that regard.
No,
Yeah. You know, I
no.
I wrote down today. I'll be. I was wondering if you would give us, if you could. I mean, Thomas, Tyler, and Augustus, I wouldn't let these things go on so long, but yours is such a rich, potentially rich conversation. Could you give us a brief biographical narrative about your as an artist? What should I know about you if I don't know anything about you? Where did you come from? How did you get to dance? And it is dance you do.
It is dance that I do. It's an extreme version.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm extremely dedicated to bodies and bodies and
Mhm.
everything that we have in our bodies. Um, I'm from North Carolina, and I didn't start dancing till I was 15. And then I had the amazing privilege of having some people in my life who sort of pushed me forward once like I entered my first dance class in a high school in North Carolina. No artists in my family, and my family was like, "What? What are you doing?" And I thought, this feels like something really exciting for me." And so I had,
Well,
those
what had you
people.
seen? What inspired you?
I hadn't seen very much. I hadn't really seen anything. I mean, this is so embarrassing, but honestly, the reason I started dancing was because there was a boy that I went to my sister's high school graduation. She's 2 years older than me. And so I guess I was about 14 and a half. And there was a boy who I thought was very cute. His name was David Van Court. I'll never forget what he looked like. And I said to my sister, I need to go meet him and ask him what he's going to do now. So I went up to David and asked him, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to go be on Broadway and be a dancer." And I was like, "Wow, I've never heard of that." And I went home and I told my mom, I want to take a dance class.
All
So
right.
not a deep beginning at all.
Well, whatever it takes, you know. I don't know if you remember some years ago when my friend and a great hero of mine, Gloria Steinem, I don't know if it was what election it was, but she made the faux pas of saying young women are. They said there are there more young women in politics. She said, "Well, young women are often motivated to go where the boys are." And that was, you can imagine, feminist. What she said that, but I, but you could cut her some slack in that regard, right? You might.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
reason for
yeah.
going there is not the reason you stay, of course. So going on, what
No,
happened?
so my parents were wonderful. They had 5 kids, and they were like, "Okay, guess this one's going to be different." And so I started taking class at our community dance center, and then in my high school, and then I had wonderful people who called up my parents and said, "We think your child should go to a summer program." My dad would drive me across the state of North Carolina in the middle of the night to go to auditions, and I ended up going to a few summer programs, and then I got into North Carolina School of the Arts. I got this is so funny how life happens. I auditioned for ballet and modern, and they offered me a full scholarship for modern. So I said, okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do.
Hmm. Oh, wow.
Wasn't,
'Cause I always wondered over the years as I've been watching you, I must say it hasn't been that long, but I thought, oh, she was definitely a ballet baby. I imagine who turned to modern dance, but never a ballet
no,
baby.
no, I took my first ballet class at 15 and my first modern dance at 15, for my first modern class at 15.
Hmm.
And then I, went through that conservatory training. And then when I left, I didn't know what to do. And so my best friend, I moved to New York City, and my best friend, Michael Cole, who you must know from Merce Cunningham,
Yes, I do know him. Yes.
he's my very best friend, continues to be. And he said, why don't you come to the Cunningham studio? And I was like, well, I don't know that I'd never had Cunningham before. And it was one of those magical moments where I remember entering that studio and feeling an enormous amount of freedom in that work. And
Freedom.
yeah, huge
Ah.
amount of freedom. Our training at School of the Arts at that time was Graham,
Mm,
and it was really constricting for me physically and emotionally, being told the stories that I was supposed to tell with my body rather than my body finding the stories through the
hmm.
process of doing the work. So, and Merce's work is so, there's so much air in it, so much jumping, and, it's very grounded, but it also really goes up into the air. And
Hmm.
I felt a huge relief. Just my body wanted to do that. I wanted to be in the air. I wanted to be thinking while I was doing. And so that was a really amazing match. And then it was about 6 weeks later that Merce asked me into his company. And I
Wow.
didn't I didn't even know the back exercises. It was just like one of those things where I felt so connected to what he was asking for,
Hmm. Hmm.
deeply physical level.
Oh,
Um,
well, that is a whole other conversation. I guess to think that a person who I saw was supremely intellectual and controlled um, could inspire a passionate and I dare say emotional response.
yes.
Well, that's very interesting. Um, uh, the title Blur, and you're playing with lowercase letters, uppercase letters. I know you go on in your description to talk about the fact that there is a blurring, oftentimes between yourself and the person that you're trying to save, or that it wasn't your term but mine. And I think it's very personal. You mentioned, is it a brother or something? Yeah, that's the. So what about? I want to talk about that blur a little bit. What's going on there? Even the way you write it, blur.
Yeah, well, the way I write it is it's meant to be active, so it's meant to start quietly and then get loud and then go back down.
Ah,
Um, yeah, so
aha.
that yeah, and no, not my brother, but the initiating content for this work was very, very, very personal, and it
Mhm.
it revealed itself. I think I talked about this in July in that showing. It was not the piece that I had planned to make. I'm not somebody who sort of goes into my personal life and asks myself, what am I feeling and what do I want to make? I try to think outside of myself, but this particular material sort of pushed itself out um, during a residency when I was by myself. And this was about 2 years ago. I had planned on being on this residency alone. I was going to make this other material. I had been writing about it. It was sort of a love story. It was this romantic thing. And then I found myself in the studio grappling with this really intense, forceful material. And I had to sort of step back and say, where's this coming from? And then I realized, oh, this is coming from, I had had an experience um, a couple years prior of witnessing someone that I'm very close to overdose.
I
And
see.
this is not my brother, so I need to say that, but
Yeah,
somebody very close
I
to me.
was a misreading. I read it. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
okay. It's
yeah.
okay. Don't worry. I've actually taken this super interesting because I was so overwhelmed by recognizing that that was the content that I was dealing with, and I was very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, well, if I mine this and I'm really clear with where this is coming from, and then I take it out of my body and put it into other bodies, and then I step back and direct, how can I then create something that's not just about my experience, but that speaks to a more expansive kind of experience. And
Well,
so, yeah,
yeah, well, okay, well, that's I'll just stop you for a moment because my response, I said I did not read your description until after the recent showing. I know your work, I respected it, so I thought, oh, I'll just wait and see the work and then I'll respond to it, right? Today, or
yeah.
a couple of days ago, I began reading what you had originally written, and it made and that reading collided with my experience of seeing the work. So I did not read your description until after seeing the recent showing. My response slash question, I was about to say seeing the work, but somehow to see is lacking. Reading your description, I believe you wish to express, or you wish to have me have an experience to be somehow implicated in the work and in your experience. Um, and I said, naive and familiar, because what artist, you've said the opposite of this several times in our conversation already. What artist is actually not trying to bring me into their experience? And so I wrote here, naive and familiar, yes, but what do you want from the viewer?
Well, I definitely want the viewer to be inside an experience, but because the pieces become bigger than that initial sort of source of content, I guess you'd say. So
Mm-hmm,
I've actually taken all that language out of the publicity materials. It was very much how I wrote all of the grant writing and things like that. I really fleshed out this experience and witnessing a body um, going through stages of distress and dealing with time and the blurring of time when you're in sharing a crisis or a traumatic moment with another person. But because once I actually got into the making of the piece, not the writing of the piece, but the making of the piece, which are different things, very different
mm-hmm,
things. I'm
mm-hmm,
sure you agree with me on that. I
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
realized that it was more expansive than that one. This piece is not, I'll just put out there, this piece really is not about uh overdosing. It's just not about that at all. But it was important for me to share the personal experience and my reflections on the world that we found ourselves in as I built support around the piece. Now that I'm putting it out into the world, it's like, no, it's actually more than that. It is about distress. It is about intervention. It is about how we care for ourselves and rescue each other through
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
crises. It is about how we provide forms of tender support, forms of violent support, how we create a sense of, I don't even want to say community, but maybe communal response to a crisis.
Well, I won't ask
Right.
you to keep doing that because you've done it brilliantly in what you have written about it. Now,
Thank you.
so now that we understand that I am responding, one, to something that I saw recently, but
Mhm.
two, now I have a double response, which is also leading me in a certain direction that has to do with what you originally said you were going to do. And here, but the response that afternoon I saw that wonderful showing was when the two young people coming out and embracing each other. I was thinking, I mean, I wonder if this is them is Kimberly creates such a collaborative, loving community that these two people embrace like that because they wanted to, or did Kimberly design it? And then when that starts with this driving um, pulse, I think you say it's a heartbeat, and I wrote emergency exclamation
Mhm.
question, where and for whom? Uh, And that is when I was seeing this, I was saying, oh, this is something. Is this about being in Gaza? Is this about being in George Floyd? Is this about what? The world is, as I used to say, the world's in an uproar. The danger zone is everywhere. Coming from South
Danger zone is
Carolina,
everywhere. The danger
pardon?
zone is everywhere.
Yeah, the danger zone is everywhere. That's the
That's
world I grew up in. It's a dangerous world. There's always
interesting.
something. And what's more, there's a them and an us. And that them is going to hang your ass if you're not careful. Now, this hearing us now words like empathy, uh, all those words like that, sometimes um, I find them landing hollow, you know, because I don't know, what does your empathy cost you? And that's why I think an artist like you is justified in grabbing me by the collar and doing something. But that's not your style. That's my style, you know? Um, so uh, I would like to throw out some terms that, in the context of this conversation, I will call your choices. And maybe you
Okay.
can address them as you like, and maybe if you don't want to, right? Vocabulary. What would you have to say about vocabulary?
That's a great question because I don't think of myself as a movement maker at all. Well, I'm not a movement maker. Movement's really hard for me. I don't think of
Mm-hmm,
myself in terms of phrases, or I don't do like movement exploration, but the body for me is the most potent form of communication. So we got to deal with it. We got to give it something to do.
mm-hmm.
So vocabulary, is that what you said? Vocabulary? I've already
Vocabulary.
got
This is a
vocabulary.
category,
Yes.
a formal
No, this is
category.
yes, form a category. So for this piece, I was thinking a lot, or I was feeling a lot, forms of resistance in the body, resisting chaos, resisting desire, resisting or giving into and resisting desire and chaos, both of those sort of extremes. The deep internal activity that has to happen in order to not give into a desire or an impulse, something that could be destructive or not, but not to
Mm-hmm,
give into the thing that your body wants, the thing that your body is desiring.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
I did a lot of on my own, sort of slow, sort of like superpower, like pushing against the ground. And that's where that idea of the vibration came from, actually, because it was pulling
ah,
so
uh-huh.
hard that my whole body started to vibrate. So it wasn't like shaking, it wasn't like I was really resisting chaos, really, um, and feeling the power of allowing. I use a lot of my imagination when I'm creating material. So I put myself into situations where I was like maybe in a plank position on the floor or something, and I would feel in my body the desire to give in, and then the push. How hard do I have to push not to give in to that desire?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
allowing those things to sort of flow. And so that whole first emergency section, which you identified beautifully, the danger is everywhere. Um, is so much about conflicting forces in the body and how we can have all these things passing through us at the same time.
So when you work with your performers, now the classic way of doing it, if Merce, or not Merce, but Martha Graham wanted to talk about the dilemma of a woman uh,
Mhm.
and the danger of a womb, the danger of a vagina in a phallocratic world, she would make movements that were indicating something, and then the performers would learn those phrase movements, and they would go from there. How do you proceed? Do you come in with phrase material or come in with concepts?
I come in first, I can't make a phrase without a concept, so I always have concepts first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I create some material. Um, Pretty much every piece I have maybe 3 phrases, maybe 4, because I just don't make movement that easily.
Mm-hmm.
And then for this piece, we took those phrases that I made early on and we just mined them. We just, this is before I didn't know what the piece was. I didn't know where it was going to be. I didn't have any support. So we just mined them and mined them and mined them until I started seeing something in them, the quality in them that I could work with. And then I direct what's happening with the phrases. So I'll set up a set of situations. And in this piece in particular, we really, because I was really clear, I was like, this is what's happening. It's a crisis, and it's not that we're in it together. And I want to put that language aside. It's more like we are thrown into this thing and we have to make a decision about what we're going to do.
No,
We can
okay.
save each
So,
other or not.
is there improvisation in your studio? When you say you're mining something, what do you mean mining? Variation? Can you
No,
do the same movement that was taught abruptly, but do it tenderly? What do you mean we were mining the?
more just doing the phrases and digging deep into what the physical impulses were in the phrases.
Mm-hmm,
Um, and then by creating certain situations, there is a certain kind of improvisation, but it's extremely specific. People aren't really working outside of the material and creating their own material. It's more like they're creating their interpretation of what is being communicated with each other with this material. So it's like we
mm-hmm,
need something to work with, and this is our vocabulary.
mm-hmm.
So we're going to stick to this vocabulary and see what it brings up.
I see. I see. Well, another word. Oh, no, another concept. Stage space. How did you decide how the space is to be used?
This changed as we went downstairs into the theater. I had been working in studios where I was really
Mm-hmm,
close. And it was really, really important for me to work in the theater and step back and then see how space worked in this piece. And that's how we ended up putting the pieces of fabric that have motion in them. Um, because I needed the space not to be too big so that it bled
mm,
out all that energy, all that intense energy bled out, but I also needed to not have a hard like end point. Um, so, but I deal a lot with how energy sort of passes through the space. I mean, that's probably as abstract as I've gotten in this piece. It's not an abstract piece
mm-hmm,
at all.
mm-hmm,
But like if Joanna's at this end of the space and Donovan's at that end of the space and they're on the same line, then I see something and I can see it because I'm stepping back, and let's keep that. So
mm-hmm.
I'll make design choices like that. But
Would this piece work in a 2,000, 3,000 seat auditorium?
oh, that's a really good question. Um, not sure. I'm not
Because,
sure.
it's germane to a certain aesthetic that I
It
think
is,
many
yeah.
people associate with New York Live Arts and quote, um, what's the term? Downtown, non-traditional. And I know in my own work, when I'm working at New York Live Arts, I want it to be intimate. I want it to be immersive. It raises
Mhm.
hell with the business of dance. Because if you go to certain spaces and you say, oh, I make this piece for 184 seats, and they say, well, I can't have you here for 10 performances. I got 2 nights. I can get an audience in there. So,
Right.
well, so you don't. Those are not concerns of yours when you're conceiving of a work. It's breadth. It's readability and different circumstances.
No, no, it is. For this work, that's a great question because I think for this work, because I had the privilege of receiving NDP support, so I knew we would be touring it at least a little bit. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so I didn't want to be, for this piece, I didn't want to be constricted to a small, intimate, sweaty space.
Oh, you did not.
No, I wanted to be able to allow it to be in a small, intimate, sweaty space because it's sort of what I do intuitively. But I also really wanted to be able to create an aesthetic where a bit of distance would still allow the audience to have an experience, maybe different, but still have an experience. And so again, that's why those 2 weeks of working in your space were so important to me because it was the first time that I was able to step back. And I was in huge crisis when we first started, when we first looked at the material. And in the theater, I was like, oh my God, this is going to fail. This is going to totally fail. I don't know what to do with it. And I had
No, you thought it was
to,
going to fail because it wasn't big enough, or what?
because it wasn't, yes, because I had never
Ah,
stepped back. And so all those things that I was feeling or seeing in the small space were not translating. And I did a
mm-hmm.
considerable amount of restaging of it
Yeah.
in the space, but I stuck with it. I was just like, Rick, we want to design this piece. We want it to be a piece that can read with distance. Don't let
Mm-hmm.
me give it, like, help me figure this out. And it took some time. And I really did. I had is maybe day 3 where I was like, I'm gonna fail. It's gonna totally fail. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to do this. And part of that too is practice. It's like if we don't, as artists, if we don't have practice in asking ourselves these questions and we don't know, it's not magic. It's not like we wave a
Yeah.
magic wand and say, oh yes, it will work here now. Like we have to have our own set of parameters and our own set of questions that make us understand how to create, how
Mm,
to deal with those challenges. And I
mhm,
haven't done that in a long time. I haven't done that since 2020 when I was in your space, when
mhm.
I came up with similar questions.
Well, you're
And
known as a meticulous craftsperson, and um, and I think one of the first words I heard from Carla Peterson was, "Well, the work has it. It can have a magnetic sense, and at the same time, she's able to instill menace in the space." Um, that's
okay.
interesting, isn't it? I think that,
Yeah,
Carla, if you're listening to this, I think that's how I remember our conversations about Kimberly. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Uh, yeah, it had a magnetism because of its subject matter and oftentimes its intimacy, but it also had menace in it. And maybe that was the first work I saw, first couple of works I thought they were very much about couples, um,
Mhm.
loving relationships, men, women, so on. This one is on another level. But uh, uh, what about the composition of your cast? The bodies. How did you choose the bodies that you have?
So Burr, it's gone through a few different iterations. Burr was in the studio with me originally when I didn't have a piece. I just had this material. And 2 other people who are no longer with the cast. I really wanted to challenge myself with this work to bring in some new performers. Joanna came in a little bit later, actually. I wasn't originally, Joanna, we've been working together for 16 years, but originally I
Mhm,
wasn't like, oh, this is Burr and Joanna together. I just knew Burr, some other people. Then they sort of cycled out. Then I was like, actually, yes, Joanna. So then I brought Joanna in. And then Donovan was this gift. Burr had, I met Donovan through teaching Kyle Abraham's company. Sometimes I'll teach them warm up.
mhm,
And I really love their dancers. And I met Donovan through that experience. And Burr had mentioned that he had heard that Donovan was curious about working with some other people. And so I was like, do you think that Donovan would want to work with us? I was a little shy to ask.
mhm,
And Donovan said yes. So from the minute Donovan stepped in the studio, I was like, oh my God, like their mind is, when you saw them perform, I mean, they're just like ready to go to that extreme place. Um,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
and I mean, and their body also can do all these amazing things, but mainly I was like, oh yes, psychically, emotionally, Donovan has this depth, this complexity, this this desire to go very, very
mhm.
deep.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and what about gender? Like, what? It's
Mhm.
3 men, 2 women. Is that true?
Now it's 3 men and 2 women. Originally it was 2 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacoby came in because Jacoby was originally going to be a sort of swing with Donovan.
Mm-hmm.
And then as things happen, as you know, you're like on tour, somebody can't show up because, like, I mean, honestly, we put this piece together at Bates Dance Festival last summer. That was the first time I had a structure. And Donovan was supposed to come. We traveled on the day of the global computer outage. Donovan was in California with AIM, spent 2 days trying to get to Bates, never got there. So I looked at Jacoby and I was like, you're not Donovan, so you're going to be in this work. And Jacoby was like, okay.
Okay, well
And
then
so,
that because I think that there is for me the elephant in the room right now is race. Because
mm,
you had to, Donovan's a black man, and you needed another
mhm.
black man to replace him. So how did how does your does race fit in your thinking about your cast?
Well, actually, Donovan chose Jacoby because when I realized that we had a piece and that Donovan was very, very busy with AIM, I said, Donovan, I've never done this, but I think we need to have somebody who's sort of your shadow, not literally shadow, but just like who's going to sort of shadow you so that if we get some work that you can't come on, this person can come in. This was naive thinking. I don't make that kind of work. But I thought at that time, I was like, oh, I'm going to expand, be expensive. I'm going to, have this, this flexible cast. It's really not anymore. Um, but Donovan suggested Jacoby. I did not know Jacoby. So it wasn't as
Okay,
conscious.
so what you're trying to say then, this could be done with all five white people.
No, absolutely not.
Well, that's what I'm trying
Absolutely
to get
not. But
at.
I've never, yeah. Yeah, no, no, no. I've never had an all-white cast.
Well, that's what I'm
Um,
asking. How does race work?
Race works for me. This is a really complicated question. Let me see if I can go back to my initial inquiry into this, which was way back in 2010, I think it was, where I was asking questions about if you cover up the the color of somebody's skin, what is happening underneath that coverage? What do we get from it? And then what happens when we reveal it? And what is the complexity when you understand that it's male, female, black, white? This is a piece that I did to call You Are My Heat and Glare, which we did up in your studio. It was my first piece that I
Mhm.
did. So actually it was later, it was 2014, 2012, 2012. Um, these were a little bit more naive questions because they were not politically motivated. I wasn't thinking at that time, I must have people of color and, a mixed cast. I was thinking, I want representatives of our world. I want to see the world in my cast.
Mhm.
So we can't all look the same. There's very, very,
Mm.
it was very like my best friend is Michael Cole, a 6'4" queer black man. He's been my best friend since I was 18, 16.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and he just is my best friend. So if I'm trying to make a world that includes the people that I love, and I want that world to be on stage, I need to make sure that it represents who's in my ecosystem.
And you realize, of course, I asked this question, and I hope it's respectfully asking because
Oh,
going back to my work, I have never felt that I lived in a world that was a neutral world. And yet I
right.
thought that the avant-garde that I inherited, bless you, Ms. Yvonne Rainer, bless you, Steve Paxton, but those people were in a way, um, they did not think that just now, I mean, Yvonne, just now realizing that there is the thing called race and whatever the avant-garde was in the 60s had a reckoning. There's a
Yes.
certain way of neutrality, formalism. What are the references that we take for granted? Who are the audiences? If you
Mhm.
watch television now, if you watch Netflix, you can feel the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion at work.
Right.
And I
Right.
thought, is our field immune to those forces as well? And now one of our premier makers is telling me that yes and no, that you don't, like I'm saying, it shouldn't really
Well,
matter who they are, right?
no,
They
I
should
think it
just
does. I think it does matter who they are. But I think that this is such a good series of questions because I've been making work long enough that it was way before there was the DEI filtering that we're all working through, working with, working through, working against,
Hmm.
however, our, whatever our position is. I would be lying to say that it isn't, that there isn't always in my mind now a question of what are people going to think about the representation of my work? But then I push that away and I commit to the people because it's actually it has to be these people. And those are the people that I need. But
And
there's,
that goes back to your question about when you were asking, you were told them this is going to be about a crisis and so on.
Mhm,
And yet it was going to be beyond your, in my own work, and there's a lot of discussion in my company about this. I will turn to someone and say, what do you think about this? How do
mhm,
you feel about this? Did Merce turn to you ever and say, what do you think about the war and what do you? That's what I'm saying. There was a break.
no,
There was a
no.
change, right? And we now are in a world, and people have to know that when they come into my work, that I want
Mhm,
to know who you are and I want to know
yes,
what this means to you. And therefore, and
yes,
by extension, it goes to the audience. What does this issue mean to you? Um, and so, what do you think? Am I
yes.
am I going off
No,
unnecessarily here or what?
no, 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 no. This is a small tangent, but it's totally related. To go back to Merce.
Mm-hmm.
In my generation, no, we did not speak at all. Not at all about anything. And it was, I mean, I loved doing that work. And I also had so many issues. I used to talk about why is the door closed to the world? Like, we can't pretend that the world isn't happening. And that was ultimately why I was like, I can't just think about these like steps anymore. I have to think about
Mm-hmm.
something beyond. Um, I'm right now in the process of getting ready to restage just during a workshop, one of Merce's really um, complex works called Winter Branch, which is from
Yes, it's
1964.
famous. It's
You know
famous.
Winter Branch,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite pieces of his because I think that there's no way that Merce wasn't feeling the world coming into the studio when he
I
made
thought
that
that he
piece.
was actually referencing Vietnam. I thought that's what informed Rauschenberg with the
I
lights in the eyes and police violence and
I
riots
think
and so on.
I think some people have said that he was. I'm not sure that it's ever written down that Merce said
Mm-hmm.
this. You know, when I'm looking at, actually, I'm looking at Merce's notes because I have access to the notes, and it's things like it's a study in falling as slowly and as quickly as humanly possible. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen anything in the notes that references anything political, but I do think that maybe he was speaking to Rauschenberg about this, and then Rauschenberg brought that into the public purview. But um, there, those are the pieces that I'm really invested in
Mm-hmm.
Cunningham's
Mm-hmm.
legacy. I'm so excited to have conversations about this work and how does it make us feel to see it? How does it make us feel to do it? Can we take it outside of history? Can we understand it now? But Merce
Do you
never,
have an ideal audience in mind?
for my
Who is
work.
the audience for this work? An ideal audience.
Well, every time I make a piece, I always ask, would my father, who's a MAGA, gun-owning, right-wing Republican, beautiful man, very educated, but MAGA. I haven't talked to him in a long while. What would he see? And would this piece move him? I
Mm,
ask myself that every time. And I feel sort of blessed that I have this complication in my life where I want to always make sure that I'm speaking to people that are outside of my politics.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, I want ideal audience. I mean, I just want people to feel and think when they're to get shaken up, to leave the theater and not look at their phones, to leave the theater and be really like in their bodies and in their emotions and in their life. And so that audience could be a lot of different people. I think that this piece, an experience we had at Bates Dance Festival last year was that some of the young adults were quite distressed by some of the images in the work. And
Like what? Like which one? The shaking? shaking or the
Must have been
um,
that, yeah.
it looked like it, when I saw the first version of it, I think it was Live Artery last winter. It looked like
Yeah,
CPR was being administered, you know.
yeah.
And is that what you meant? They and what was their
I
objection?
think it's the vibrating. I think it was the vibrating that they
Right,
were,
which is very disturbing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's very disturbing.
What were they feeling that you were imposing something on
They,
them or?
no, they wanted, what do you call it? It was, they were triggered and they had
Ah,
wanted some trigger warnings before seeing the showing. And,
yeah. Okay.
and then they wanted some resources. This was really complicated, and I had some very, I'm very close to to Shoni, who's the director of Bates, and we had a lot of conversations around, would that have helped or would that have hindered? I mean, you tell people they're gonna feel hard things, then they're already in a state of panic, you know. So, but
Mm-hmm.
there's because I teach a lot and I teach this age group, you know, the university age, young pre-professionals. There's a lot of fragility in these generations. There's a lot of people needing you to go, oh, it's going to be okay. You know, oh, it's okay. You don't have to work hard because you might feel something. Don't even get me started. Um, so but I decided when I went deeper into the work and we started preparing it for our premiere here, that we weren't going to offer those kinds of I guess you call it trigger warning. You know, when you prepare your audience,
Will you use
feel things
program notes? Will you use program notes?
yeah, program notes. Will I? No,
Yes.
no. I don't
Mm,
think so. I mean,
uh-huh.
I like to write an artist statement, but usually my artist statement is about something that I've been thinking about in the world and why I made this piece. But I'm not going to have any of the original language in there because I don't want
I
people to
see.
go, oh, this is about addiction, this is about overdosing, this is about intervention. I want them, they're gonna feel what they feel, right?
Hmm.
And one of the first, I've done a lot of like really small showings of this work along the way, just like I'll have 5 people come in and say, what did you think? What did you feel? And one of the first people who saw this work said, oh, it makes me think about Vietnam. And I was like,
Hmm.
great, that's what I want. I want,
Hmm.
you know, that's your generation and that's awesome.
Because
So
that's
I'm,
when I saw the beginning of the work and I said, oh, there's an emergency. What
yes,
emergency? You know, and that is maybe not for the choreographer to tell me, but for me to
right.
turn and say, how does it, do I exist in a world of emergency? And I think you show great respect to your audience in that regard. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank
art
you.
historical references. I was watching it and I thought a couple of things as I was watching it. And I was watching it with my companion, husband, and
Mhm.
we were thinking um, Afternoon of a Fawn. I don't know where that came from. It was something that felt like Afternoon of
Wow.
a Fawn. Well, that's figure on the ground, face down, those sort of things. The Descent from the Cross, and
Yes.
yes, and I thought about martyrdom. I thought about, and then, yes, it's true, our classical tradition in the West is encapsulated in those images, but there's also a way of thinking about what art is for. Is it educating morally and so on, right? Um, Classicism's use of charged tableau. That's why I was
Mm.
asking about your vocabulary, because there are very self-conscious, not in a bad way, but very conscious tableaus at work. What you want to riff on this idea of you and the history of art making?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Thank you. I mean, my master's degree is in history of visual art criticism. And I've always been really, really deeply invested in a sort of history of visual art. And I think for this piece, I kept saying to Rick, oh, this is the Caravaggio moment. You know, we need the light from here so we see Caravaggio. But it was less, I think, for this piece, less about the references and more about my insistence that we needed beauty in
Ah.
this world that was full of distress. It couldn't just be, oh my God, we feel like shit. We're in distress. But we have, that's why the young people have the lights that they're holding,
Hmm.
because they are
They're
uh
modeling the light. They're modeling it as a painter would.
they're
Yeah, yeah.
modeling it, yeah, and they're both young visual artists, and those are lights that have real light bulbs in them, so they are warm and they
Hmm.
have a tenderness on the skin. They make you look really beautiful.
Hmm.
And and I really wanted that. I didn't want like, an assault on those bodies that are going through all of this distress.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so we were really trying to create um tableaus, like you said, that had just beauty, like complex beauty, like
Well, you know, it's funny
tragedy
that
and
it's
beauty
funny
at the
you
same
took us
time.
there. I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm getting rude here because I'm trying to push. It's funny that you said because my next one had been what about beauty and pleasure?
Yeah,
And I
there's so
think
much.
you say that we need, the artist that you are feels responsible for bringing beauty. And with beauty, well, maybe let's leave pleasure out. Some aspect of beauty to the work. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word responsible. I'm not sure I feel responsible for bringing it in, but I do
Mm-hmm.
feel a deep need to provide
Mm-hmm.
some source of beauty and pleasure. There's like some extreme pleasure in this work. But I mean, I
Give
was
me an
making this
example of what you
work.
consider pleasurable.
Ooh, well, the vibrating section is all about, I mean, and it's grown so much. The first time you saw it during Live Artery, it was quite controlled, and I was controlling it from the outside because I didn't really know what it was. I was giving them, we started that with just you can't move, you're just in place and you're vibrating in time to the score. And then when they felt that vibration really inhabited their bodies, then I said, okay, now movement can come out of your body that is from the piece. And then the next layer was, okay, if that, I'm going to allow you to move, but you have to wait for me to let you move. So I was giving direction from the outside, saying, okay, Joanna, move. Okay, Donovan, move. Okay, Burr, move. Because I wanted the restriction to keep being there, and it had to do with
Mm.
that push against desire, push against like we're not going to completely give in to just a mass orgy here. But then as they got deeper into that, then I just stepped out because I saw these stories that were coming up. And it was so much about this sort of perverse kind of pleasure, like the desire to smear your body on someone else's sweat, the desire to feel um, you know, to take a article of clothing off and wipe it on somebody else's body, and to go back to my original content of this work and looking at what are the extreme forces going on in our bodies that make us desire something that might not be good for us, or that might take us into a very dark place, referring again to
Addiction
drug
and so on.
use. Yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
yeah, really looking at that. That's where all that, is coming from, a desire for to be in a place of pleasure. But this is interesting to think about because I've been looking at, this is not the first piece that I've been looking at, what do the place of drug abuse in our culture. There've been several projects that I've done some pretty specific research into what a body goes through that is in a cycle of drug use. And I remember this came into this piece a lot, um, reading this really interesting article about the way the brain gets tricked when it's on a drug like heroin or fentanyl, and starts to believe that it's being in there are these ideas about like being embraced by Jesus, and as where a lot of the sort of Christian you know,
The ecstatic
crucifix and
imagery,
everything.
the ecstatic imagery, I think
Static imagery. Thank you.
yes, yeah,
It's that, the
thank you
ecstatic.
very much. I was feeling these things, and I feel validated in what I was
You
feeling.
got it. You totally got it. Ecstatic
Yeah,
imagery.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And then my next question is, you're great to interview. It was, tell me about the shaking, which you have done, and was that a rave or an orgy? And I think you just, and it's being referred to, and if so, why?
I think it's both. It's rave and orgy at the same time, but then it's neither. And I've had to be really clear with those guys. I think that one of the reasons why we took the development of that scene in stages was because I didn't want to, I thought it was going to be indulgent to immediately let people just like feel what they feel when you're at a rave. It's like it's actually not a rave. But it's sort of what we feel, that ecstasy that we can feel when we're in a trance state. But it's much darker than that. It's much more perverse than that. And it's much more violent than that. It's more violent on our bodies and on the body that we might be doing something to. Um, but but that was definitely some of the images, like allowing yourself to feel what it feels like to just be in. I don't even go out dancing, but I think I must feel like to
Hmm.
feel those situations. And then I don't know if you remember the scene after that where they lift Joanna up.
Hmm.
I call that the warped time mosh pit. Because I was like, okay, what did we just do to ourselves? What are we left with? What are our bodies? What's left in our bodies? And how do we sort of like relieve ourselves from gravity? Okay, let's raise this one figure up slowly. And then that turned into all these different kinds of images, like Jacoby being let down. Like I feel like that's really Christian image, and then people allowing themselves to place their bodies in an extremely provocative position on each other. But I didn't even, I mean, I'm so lucky to, I'm sure you feel this way with your incredible company too. It's like if you have the right people, if you give them a direction, then they take that direction. I certainly never said, "Oh, Burr, can you smear yourself on Donovan?" You know, it
Hmm.
just was sort of happening. And then I said, let's encourage that. That seems to be the place that this scene is in. Let's, okay, let's let that happen. And then what else could possibly happen? So sort of taking what the people that I'm working with are bringing in their own extreme personalities and the places that they go. Like we don't really rehearse that vibrating section. We do it once before we are in a showing situation, maybe twice,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it needs to sort of arise from
Right.
where they've gone in the piece.
Yeah. It needs to be fresh somehow, right? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. More terms, concepts, shame.
Yeah.
Anything
There's,
to say about shame? Now, what do I mean? What do I mean? Shame? Of course, I could ask you want to. I mean, I could ask you to, Kimberly, to talk about philosophically shame. But what, when I say shame, and you're thinking about your work and this interview, what does shame bring to this, or the concept of shame, or how you feel about shame in your work, in this work?
I think that shame definitely has a place in this work. It's sort of the post. That's part of what we're left with when we've allowed our bodies to ravage each other or be ravaged.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that the shame for me is not something necessarily that I feel as a person, but I think we feel culturally, like what we feel when we learn something about somebody that might be very dark. Um, what we feel when we've allowed ourselves to express the most base need, our deep, deep, deep need to somebody, and then we feel shame because we revealed that because we live in a culture that's quite puritanical, and in this piece in particular, because there is a lot of contact between the men, a lot of intimate contact, and that the shame that we feel, or that shame that our culture puts on us for whatever deep desires we are expressing. Um, it's sort of like that after, it's not the after party, because this is not a party, the piece is not a party, the after ecstasy, the after, like what when we revealed everything about ourselves, the darkest corners of ourselves, how we can feel shame from having
Mhm.
revealed that.
You probably have heard me say, and I say this um, shamelessly, when people would ask me back when Arnie had died, and everyone knew I was HIV positive, and people began to, oh, how do you get HIV positive? Anal sex, those sort of things. And I was in France, and they like to think of themselves as being quite advanced. And I told, and I said, well, I am. I think art. Um, what should an artist do? That's what they would ask me, because they see me as an artiste engagé, right? Merce is not an artiste engagé. I think you are. And I just wanted to test and see if we're thinking about the same thing. I said that, and what does an artist have to do? An artist does not have to do a goddamn thing. An artist should be the freest in the culture. Sometimes uh, thumbing their nose at all received wisdom, all knowledge, even of that which is bad for us. Artists should not be afraid. And an artist, but, and this is the political maybe that I inherited from the social therapist I was going to, whose name is Frida Rosen. And she said an artist has to ask themselves as a man, as a woman, as a trans person, what is it that they need to do? Not that they should do, but what do they
Right.
need to do? And that separates artists from almost everybody else. And artists are not necessarily nice people. Sometimes they're hateful people. And the only thing we want from an artist is genius. That's the only thing we really want, right? Now, can I say that a person who is abusing children? Can I say that of what I don't know, but that's my line about this idea of what we an artist, how shame comes into it. Why are artists often brazen, shameful? Uh, why are artists? Why is art dangerous? Why is people so concerned about it? It's dangerous. Why is
I
it
know.
dangerous? Next question I have is anger. We've talked about shame. Let's talk about anger. And where we're at it, maybe judgment.
I don't feel judgment in this piece. There's definitely a lot of anger. I think the anger in this piece is towards the self, towards the impulse that the self doesn't want to follow through. So the frustration, the sort of violent anger at that, like the wanting to annihilate that. Um, definitely anger. I don't think there's even I don't mean space like, in an abstract way in this work for judgment, but it, I was really clear that it could only last a certain amount of time. Like it's really only
Mm.
45 minutes. I kept trying to make it, I was like, oh God, it's got to be 50 minutes or an hour. And I was like, it actually can't be. Every time I tried to stretch things out or whatever, then it became something that it wasn't. And I was like, no, it's just this. It's just this. And we have to be okay with this. And I have to be okay with going back to your question about like, you know, what we have to stand behind or what we, um, make people feel or I mean, I'm pretty nervous. I'll just say I'm pretty nervous about how people are gonna grapple with this work. I mean, I'm not somebody who's ever had somebody go, oh my God, it's the best work. And, have a whole audience like loving everything. Oh my God, this is the best thing. Great New York Times review, blah, blah, blah. That's like never happened. It's okay. That's why I stage pieces like Winter Branch. Like I like those like parts of
Mhm.
history that are have more conflict, but at the same time, I want to reach people and I don't want to um, make people hate the experience.
Mm.
So there has been some, I mean, this goes back to this idea of judgment. I mean, it didn't come up for me as I was creating this work, but um, I think if I had that, that would be an outside force. I think that the people in the world of Blur, including the young people with the lights, are committed to surviving this crisis. And in
Now, to be
fact,
sure, when I'm watching this scene that I asked you if it was a rave or an orgy, I immediately could smell the amyl nitrate. I could immediately smell the bathhouse on a Friday night.
Mhm.
I could immediately, and all those things, and I said, oh. And the next thing that happens is they die. And, and they die because they gave in to something that the rest of us are too disciplined and we hold it together. Therefore, they almost deserve to die.
Oh God, that's complicated. Yeah,
Well,
of
you've no, it's in the community that I come from. It's very real
course.
with
Very
young
real.
men, particularly men of color, who, if they're HIV positive,
Mhm.
they feel that they deserve to die.
Right.
So that I'm saying, when you nail an image like that, shaking and the disco and so on, uh, I think there's a lot of separation. Those of us who know what that feels like, unbridled, unfettered fucking, I call it, right? And those who have ideas about it.
Right.
So in a way, I guess I'm trying to say, I think you're doing a real service to any audience that watches this, because if there's any question that people should be asking themselves is, feel free, do you feel free to have the feelings you have when you're watching this? Do you feel
Yeah.
free? Can you stand behind your feelings? Now, that's what I was getting from the piece.
That
And she
that's yes, thank
the
you.
person making this must be a badass. The person making this must be a very strong, clear person in themselves and a vulnerable person who has been there. If not, I'm not interested, you know?
I think, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for naming all of that. I was talking to somebody about this the other day and I was just like, I have to just stand behind this. Like this is
Mm-hmm,
what happened with this piece. This is just it. And I can't tone it down and I can't make it anything else. And I hope exactly what you said. I hope people feel not even committed, just that they can feel that they can feel what they feel
mm-hmm,
from whatever perspective they're coming from. Because I think um, Vietnam, bathhouse, rave, overdose, like all these, like depending on where you are in your life, and the moment that the piece catches you, and that moment, what you cycle through is hopefully you don't edit it out. I don't know. Hopefully we don't edit out our or censor our own experience as we're watching something.
mm-hmm.
I
And
guess
you
you
say hope, and I say, I dare you not to filter at this moment. I dare you to, at this moment, this 45 minutes with us, that you go into the dark place as well. I dare you. Because I'm in daring you, I'm asking you, do you have the ability to pull out? Do you have the ability to go there, make something of it, and pull out? Because that's what the artist making this, and I think this is a question, that's what she is doing. She has taken, she's made this disturbing work because she believes in something. And what is that she believes?
what is that I believe? Oh no. Life is so fucking fragile. At any moment, you're going here and then you're just like, woof. And then everything changes.
Mm, yeah.
Everything blurs.
Yeah,
changes.
yeah, yeah.
And we can
Anything
either
you want to
do the
say about anything you want to say about the way you collaborate with dancers, lighting, sound, costume? I think you mentioned along the way, but anything that we get insight about the way you collaborate?
Yeah, well, I can talk about sound. The composer Sivan Jakubowicz is somebody that I've worked with since 2018. This is our third, fourth project together. And
Mm,
he's incredibly generous because the way we work is I give him ideas, things that I'm thinking about, and then he'll either come see a little rehearsal, see how we're working, or he'll just create some small clips of sound. And I'll say, yes, no, maybe. I'm cutting
hmm
that. I'm merging these. It's not precious for him. So the
hmm
whole score is actually pieces that he's given me that I have mess with for myself. And because I'm so crazy about the way I hear. I think this is from being in Merce's world for so long where, we weren't supposed to hear anything. So I hear everything. And when you saw the showing, I was, like Patrick set me up with all these wonderful like knobs that I was doing this with, and I was like DJing the whole thing, and I was so excited. I was like, "Oh my God, this is exactly what I want to
hmm
feel, what I want to feel when I hear this." So I'm really lucky that Sivan
So the
gives me
music is indications of what you want to feel, and as a
yes.
result, what you want me to feel.
No, you're going to feel what you feel. But if I
Uh,
have a speaker behind you, if I have a speaker behind you, you're going to feel something different than if I have sound coming at you. So I've
hmm
turned off the front speakers. I've added some subwoofers and I've put speakers on the stage and I have speakers behind the audience so
hmm
that sound is all around and coming from the ground. It's not coming
hmm
out our front. And that's something I've been exploring for a while, is where sound comes from. So you've got amazing sound engineers in your house that really helped me. They're like the first time
They're
that
good.
people were
There's a
like,
very good crew. Very good crew.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like, "Oh, I need this." And they were like, "Okay, do this." And I was such a nerd.
Well,
Um,
they love you, and you're a pleasure to work with. I think I'm
oh,
going
well,
to try
thank
to
you.
bring it to close it up, but
Okay.
these are my questions uh, that I always like to finish. How are you feeling about the art world, the world of your work is coming out of? How are you feeling about? Is it about dance? Is it about performance? How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling terrible.
Mm.
I feel like there's so many ends of, I don't know if you read my recent article about, I wrote an article maybe 2 months ago about,
Where was it?
um,
Where?
it got published in Dance Magazine. I'll make sure
I didn't
that
see
you
it.
have
I
it.
should look it up. Yeah.
It was called Arts Funding is in a Dangerous Free Fall. And I talked about the end of NDP, the end of MAP Fund, the end of the NEA, and how, as someone who's on the ground going like, wait, all these, you know, what the
Mm.
hell are we going to do? What are we going to do? I feel so much distress about where we're finding ourselves. The conversations that I'm having with people who were maybe interested in bringing this work to their theaters. Now, those conversations are ending. A lot of them are ending because they've lost their funding or because they're nervous, because the piece might be too much. They don't want to stress their audiences out. I mean,
I
all
mean,
the,
is the piece too woke?
I think it's too extreme. And like one community, I won't name it, but where there's some religious factors. And so having men kissing is not going to happen. It's like they were like, okay,
Mm.
not going to happen.
Mm.
So I am so upset that I feel like we're being crushed. I feel like we're being stomped on. I feel like I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what we're going to do. And we just got out of COVID, or we just pulled ourselves out of the ashes of this devastating, these series of pandemics. And now we have this other thing. It feels really huge. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't
Well,
know
the next
where
question,
to
maybe the
go.
next two, maybe you've answered throughout the whole interview and in the work itself, but the next two questions are, how are you feeling about the world, and how are you feeling about the future?
I don't feel good about either. I don't
Mm.
I feel like our sense of future was really challenged in the past, 5 or 6 years. Um, I don't know what the future is for our art form. I really don't know. I
Well,
don't
that's why I was trying to take it away from the art, because I notice your child is in this work. You have children. You actually, obviously,
one.
whenever anyone has a child, they obviously believe in the future. Is that so obvious?
I've had to walk my child through believing in having a future. River had a really rough high school,
Mm.
isolated, really bad high school, and is now in Cooper Union School of Art, headed towards,
Well,
I
what
mean,
is that? What school of art? The what
Cooper
school of art?
Union, Cooper Union
Oh,
School of
Cooper
Art.
Union School of Art. Ah, I see. I
Yeah,
see.
really good. I mean, River's found their people. I mean, like kick ass, doing great.
Hmm.
River just seems to find their way into all of my work. I don't know. I can't. River's my muse. River
Well, that's
makes me
great. So
feel.
your
Yeah.
river is personification of a kind of forward momentum and hopefulness.
Yes.
Now, I'm putting that
Yes.
into your mouth. Is that what I'm
Yes. Yes.
understanding? Yeah,
Yes.
and I think that we're really privileged to have that light, that healthy relationship between a maker and their offspring. And the offspring sounds like they're going to be making a maker, perhaps. And maybe,
Yes.
because some people might say that you say you're making this extreme work, but also you're making work which is actually for the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or hopefully that they're, yes. Yes. Yes.
Hmm. Well,
And
thank you very much, dear Kimberly. We're very
oh,
proud to
thank
have
you.
you there, and I think everybody will benefit by being there and being calm and knowing they can do it. We can do it. We can do it.
Thank you so much. This was such an honor. I
Well,
appreciate this so much. Thank you so much.
well, thank you for your sincerity and
Yes.
all and your intelligence. Thank you very much, Kimberly Bartosik.
You.
Bye bye.
Bye.